Okay, so here we are back in Maya, and we're going to continue where we left off. We're going to continue to make progress on our character intro, and we're going to get into creating poses now that we've gone through our lecture of creating dynamic poses. So, real quick, I want to go back to my thumbnails, and I want to show you all the updates that I made. The decision that I made to flip the first three poses, so he'll be going from screen right to screen left instead. I flipped this frame also, and I'm going to keep everything else intact for the time being. We'll see if we need to make changes as we continue to move forward, but for now, this will be my game plan. Okay, so I'm going to get into actually posing out Spidey, and then let's see. Okay, so we have him moving through space because of our test in Unreal, but what I would like to do for right now is what I'll most likely do is just keep him in the same spot. That way I can construct my poses without having to worry about recentering. So again, I don't have to worry about recentering my camera all the time. So I'm going to try and go through and do these poses, not necessarily from the view of the shot cam first. I'm just going to go ahead and try and construct them as soundly as possible in space. We'll begin to put them in space where they would be on screen space, but also in actual space. And then we can continue to tweak the poses a little bit more towards camera once we get them closer. So, starting in, I'm going to have Spidey swing like this. He's going to be spinning around a little bit, and then he's going to be doing his behind the back pass web ball. So let's go ahead and start there. Let's see. So I'm going to be using these again as my source of spinning. And offsetting my rotations. So this I'll be using for my translates. I'm not going to be touching this at all quite yet. I think I'm going to want a set for everything. So let's go ahead and do that first. I'll select the toes. I'll select all this stuff that I have down here, basically. I'll just make one big selection set for all. That way I can use that for when I need to key everything. I'll keep it here. Don't know if I need to include my shot cam just yet, and I don't think I will for the time being. So, okay. So I've got Spidey. So the rotation that I kind of want to build is he's facing this way, and I think I'm going to save this for translate Y only. Okay. And then I think I'll use, here we go. I already got it broken down, cog3 to kind of get that bend. This. I've gone and selected my cog3 as well as my entire torso, using them in tandem and using them together to create that kind of C shape. I can't remember if I talked about this yet, but that's how I like to use the torso. I like to use them all together. Normally I like to separate out the rotations between Y and RX and RZ amongst these controllers, but I think the way in which this rig works and probably deformed, it's best if we use like all of them, because normally I would just probably take like spine 3 and rely on advanced twist. So having the twist dispersed down the torso like with some fall off, that way I only have to worry about RY on this controller, but this rig doesn't seem to have that kind of advanced twist, so we can just use the entire torso. That's no problem. Okay. Cool. So let's go ahead and go through and build some of this out real quick. Okay. I almost forgot that on -1, on the frame -1, I'm going to set a key where everything is just set to default. That way I have a bind pose in case I need to change, which I most likely will, how these work. These are all currently in world space. I might need to constrain them to the hand. I'm going to worry about those later. I'm just going to focus on the poses for now. So I'm getting the majority of the limbs in place, and I'm starting to match the gesture closer to what I want. But I also want to make sure to pay attention to what the body is doing and making sure to work in some mechanics in there. So with this leg being up, obviously I would tilt the pelvis up a little bit this way. I would probably tilt it a little bit this way in Z also. I can correct the orientation of the legs after I've pose the waist since it's not in world space, and I don't mind that so much. I also want to get some crossover in the legs too, just so they're not like straight out. Introduce like so a little bit more complexity and a little bit more just mechanics and how like the body tries to counterbalance itself through like a move like this. I'm beginning to lose the knees a little bit, so I'll get that back a little bit. And then I think I want to make this a little bit more dramatic because like the proportions of the rig aren't necessarily going to give me, I don't think, exactly what I'm looking for, but I can get close. Or at least something similar. Might be able to use, is it this? So I think I'm going to make a selection set for this. Yep. I'll put this here. I'll make an opposite selection set. I just use a shortcut to select the opposite control, and I'm making another selection set. Trying to put it up here. Maybe this color. That way it's closer. Nah, we'll put it there. And then I select that opposite, and I'm going to add this to my all. That way I have this keyed here, and then I'll zero it out here. I have a shortcut for reset also. Reset being reset pose. This, where is it? Here it is. This button right here on Animbot. It'll zero out all of the transforms and rotates. I believe scale too, depending on what settings I have. Okay, cool. Another thing I was looking at too, I wanted to make sure that I'm rotating this in the right direction. So this is a hinge joint, the elbow in particular, and I want to make sure I'm respecting that, especially because the texture on Spider-Man is going to be pretty important. So if I begin to rotate the forearm in a direction that it doesn't normally rotate like this, right? I would normally get some pretty ugly stretching, and you don't necessarily know where the elbow is at this point. So as much as possible, I always try and keep this limited to its actual like anatomical function, which is, just a hinge. Okay, so let's get a bit closer. And even during this stage, I like to take the time to like sculpt out and really make nice hand poses. I don't like saving those for later. I find that the earlier you make them and the nicer you make them, like the first time, the less actually cleanup work you're going to have to do later on. So let me get the arms going first. I'm not quite sure where I want to put this arm yet. I'm going to guess that I'm going to want a little bit of twist out of the torso. So probably, okay. I'll probably bring this back in RZ. Maybe a little bit of both. Still want him to be center. Yeah, that feels really good. See how far we can get. That's very good. And then I'll be able to raise his shoulder up and back to support that twist. Actually, I think I might want straight. So I'm going to reverse it, and I'm probably going to get a little bit of breaking of the joints. Yeah. Okay, cool. And there's a very good chance that I'm going to get like a superhero hand here, but we'll see. Let's go ahead and do a fist first here with this. So when posing the hands, it's actually very important that you treat them as different hands. Try as much as possible not to pose them uniform like this. It's okay to begin posing them like this, but don't leave them like this, okay? Specifically for like a fist or any kind of shape you're trying to make, you want to make sure that you're really getting good shape change and like good roll in the knuckle, and like you're getting a variance in the different planes of the fist, or let's say of the hand, right? So I'm trying to get like a roll of the knuckles, how it's rolling downwards here. Even when we're looking at it from here, right? It's rolling downwards this way. Because I'm making a fist, it's supposed to be like kind of wrapping in on itself. So anything I can do to the hand to make it feel like it's wrapping in on itself, to make it feel tight, right? That's kind of the point of it. So you can see that I've begun evenly rotating like these first digits, or maybe second digits, depending on whether you count the metacarpals. But this is not where I'm going to leave it. It's a good starting point, but I'm not going to leave it that way. And we definitely shouldn't animate it that way either. If you look at your own hand, and if you look at um, the way the fingers rotate inwards, whenever you bend your fingers inwards, all of them rotate at a different rate. It's because of the different muscle fibers and how they pull on each of the fingers, right? And I was sorry, when I say each of the fingers, I mean each of the digits. So these three in particular, right? If we're looking from the side, we close it like this. It's not like it's closing evenly at the same rate like this, right? So if you end up grabbing multiple digit controls like this for posing, make sure not to leave it there. And for posing is fine, but when it's moving through motion, always remember that each of the fingers move at a different rate. Okay. So he's going to be holding on to the web there. I'm going to need to make some concessions in the finger here because this kind of a connection from the forearm to the wrist isn't the most appealing. So I'm definitely going to have to make up a little bit of that ground in the posing of the fingers, right? So let's say, for example, like this kind of an angle might feel harsh, right? Because we see like a complete 90-degree angle here, which is very unnatural. I think I'm going to want to do like maybe something like this. And then I might have to make it up in the fingers. So let's see what we can do. I don't know if I'll be able to get away with this. I'm going to see if I can scale this a little bit. That might not translate in Engine because scaling on a bone that isn't a leaf joint won't necessarily go through sometimes. So we're going to try. Looks okay. I'm not 100% happy with it yet, but we might just go ahead and leave this. Okay, not bad for now. We'll go ahead and leave it, and then we'll do this one now. So as much as possible, when I'm posing fingers that are splayed like this, I'll try and group either one or two of them, and I'll try and make sure that we don't see as many digits as we absolutely need to, right? So you can kind of see that there's concave kind of lines here that are leading up to this one knuckle. I'm eliminating the other one by making this last digit flush with the digit before it, just to make like a cleaner line and make more graphic shape. Okay, cool. There'll be our first pose. And what I like to do is I just like to make them consecutively. So the next pose that I've got will be right here. And then I'll continue all the way until I've got all of my key poses and all of my storytelling poses in. There we go. Okay, I put the rotation on the wrong controller. So I'm going to grab this X form, zero this out. And then I'm going to put that rotation on here instead. Oops. I think I just want it on X because this is actually different. So I'll just go ahead and rebuild it again. That's fine. Yeah. Okay, cool. So I'll make sure that this frame has that key instead, and then I'll start from scratch on here. So this is only translates. This is only RY, and then this is the rest of the rotations. Okay, cool. And then I'll take the spine. I'll zero this out. See that I'm rotating 90 degrees here. Almost 90 degrees. Yeah, okay. So the neck and the head. I'll zero that out. So, and then I'll begin to build in my... And I'll also make sure that I'm getting the gesture from the side view also. So not just from the front. Making sure it actually feels like he is. But okay, that's okay. I'm going to leave it that far up for now, and then we'll see where we are once we get it into camera. There's some really gross candy wrapping that's happening on the arm right here, but I'll try and ignore that for now. This is our behind the back pose. Cool. So let's take the cog, torso, neck, and the head. I'm going to reset all those. This I want the translates back. Okay, let's move on to our third pose. Third pose being our behind the back pass. see, we're going to continue to rotate in Y. And then what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to label these. So set my spine. I don't know how far over I'm going to need. Rotate him in Y. I might do a little bit less and then make up the rest in the torso. There's a little bit of twist in the back too. I know he's going to have to like torque himself pretty much, or sorry, I know he's going to have to like twist himself a lot in the upper body in order to get his arm all the way around the back. If I am to think about this properly, with this leg being up, this hip should be up. With this leg being forward, this part of the hip should be forward, which it is. I'm going to try and leave it like that right now. I don't like the idea of flattening out his torso so much. Okay, and then the head. So this arm is going to be looking towards us. This is where I think it might be a little bit tricky. I might have to readjust the twist. Okay, so let's make this hand fist now. So let's grab the fingers. I'm gonna grab the other and then mirror. I'm gonna grab this one, put it on the next frame, mirror this. Then on this frame before it, blend to neighbor to the right. That way I'm basically just putting that pose over here. That way I have a better starting point for my Spider-Man hand. Alrighty. Cool. So let's see how far back around we can get his shoulder. So his low arm needs to be bent like this. Basically needs to be like this. It's not that bad. Okay, cool. Looks like I can get some good clearance. It's getting really strange, like right here with all of this wobbliness. I'll begin to correct that once I know where he's going to end up being in camp. I'm going to need to make another fist too, because this prior fist was for like holding a web. This one I want to just to be a fist. I don't want to make it into any kind of dynamic shape with the fingers. That should be okay. So one of the things that I think that I'd like to stress, even like right now when I'm going through and doing these hand poses, like I had mentioned, I like to take the time to craft my hand poses early. That way it provides for less cleanup and less polish later on. It should also be noted though that like because we're doing this for a game, we don't necessarily need the same amount of detail that we would in any kind of linear media. The fact that it's going into a game engine alone means that like the anim is going to be just a little bit variable every single time it plays. It means it's going to be a little bit different every single time it plays. It's going to feel just a little bit different every time it plays, even regardless of like how low we can compress it, right? And so it's also not going to be like held under such a close of a microscope or magnifying glass as like a linear media would, right? And you know, so long as we sell the fantasy and so long as we are hitting what we kind of set out to create and it fills the purpose. So ours being a character intro, like it feels dynamic, it feels action packed. You know, those are the bigger wins and the takeaways and not necessarily like the level of detail, because we're actually going to miss like a lot of it depending on like where this shows up in the game. Okay, so I'm getting pretty good pose. This is still feeling really stiff to me. I have it stiff in my drawing, but I don't think I want it that stiff. Probably because I didn't get to incorporate RX in the hips yet. So what I'll do is I'll take the upper legs, I'll copy my X form, and I'll do the hips. Might even bring these forward. We'll see. Okay, let's do this first. I'm gonna rotate this back. Upper legs, back, spine. Cool. And then personally, I like to shrink the neck and the head. I like to make it like really hidden behind there. Normally I would do it through like the shoulder and like pulling this forward, but like the deformation isn't. So I'll just do it a little bit. Okay, cool. 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to do this other pose where he's shooting out webs. So for this one, he's going to be twisted all the way around. And I'll take my torso. And I'll take this and this. I'm going to take this. And so I'll begin to build this gesture. So I know from the front, it just looks straight. But I want to make sure I'm incorporating the actual gesture in space, right? So we can see that there's a lot of overlap in the forms. We're basically seeing close to the underside of the torso, I'm sorry, of the pelvis, and the pelvis overlaps the rib cage and the torso, and that overlaps like the head. So that tells us basically that there's like this kind of a rotation to it, right? So let's go ahead and make sure it's built out in space. So this part's going to be tricky. This is very much cheated in 2D, so I've got to find my equivalent in 3D. We need it to be pointing at the camera. Not necessarily at the camera, but we might be able to do something where, like, this. Hands aren't great flat like that, but that's okay. Yeah, okay, that might work. What I'll most likely do is cool. Making sure all of these poses work in space because the camera's going to be moving and I want it to feel proper and authentic. And if there's ever a chance, and it's a pretty high chance sometimes, but if there's ever a chance that we're going to change the camera, I want to make sure these poses will hold up. Okay, cool. Let's go to our next one. So this one is like a dive bomb towards camera. I think I might be able to steal from a previous pose. Let me see. So definitely not the fingers. I might be able to grab this one and then just mirror this one. Yep. And then let me see if I can get the wrist and the shoulders and the actual arm. Let me grab it from this one. And I'll mirror this one. Okay. It's a closer starting point for sure. I'm going to adjust this a little bit though. Let's see. Try and tighten everything up. Make sure it doesn't feel like there's negative space anywhere. Otherwise, it'll kind of like defeat the illusion of it being like a tight fist. Okay, fingers look good here. Let's go ahead and copy this one now. Make sure that we're seeing a good amount of a break in this limb here, but then also seeing multiple planes of the shape of the wrist. I want to tuck this in even more. And then this kind of a gesture, I don't think it's just straight. I think I want to like counter bend it in the spine. So meaning in the torso, I probably might leave that be because it's going to have to be traveling straight down like this. Okay, so depending on the angle of the character in relation to the camera, I might have to get rid of this like, okay, cool. And then I know I got a little bit of twist in there too, just to make it not so linear. Sorry, linear. Sorry about that. Let's go ahead and let's go ahead and work that in. I'm definitely gonna want to get rid of that hip bump right there, and I'm gonna avoid making too big of a shape changes in translates for now. I have a feeling I'm gonna want to do that more once I actually get in, and put this pose in place in space. I want to do it more towards camera. So now is like a good time, even while I'm doing through this, and even like while earlier while I was posing, right? It would have been a great time, and you can do this even now if you want, but whether you want to change this viewport, I completely forgot about this because I was working in the other viewport, and putting this like on silhouette, and even working in silhouette, right? I'll change the viewport so the wireframe isn't on. Like this will help you get a real good sense of whether your poses have good silhouette or not, and whether they've got like good gesture running through them. Cool. Pretty successful so far, I would say. Let's keep going. Okay. And then this one is pretty close to this one where he's like, landing on the camera. I'm not going to have to do too much here. So let me take my, the hips, for those out, but also the shoulder, the leg. Yeah, you know what? Let's just take all these. The spine, I think I can rotate it just forward now because I need this to have some kind of shape change, right? So I'm going to need probably to utilize this. And then very, very possible once I actually get in there, I might rotate or even translate the head forward. All right, let's grab the shoulders and the upper arms and reset these. And this will be a good opportunity for like a different gesture in the arm too. So I think I'm going to want a straight where I break the arm, break the joint, excuse me. And then I'll bring back my superhero fingers and hands. So let me grab this one here. And then on the wrist, this way. And I'm going to adjust this finger pose a little bit. Oof. Yeah, that is rough. I want the elbow pointed down. There's a really bad candy wrap. So negative. I want a negative value here. Or actually a positive since I want to break the joint. But if I have a negative value here, this basically tells me where my elbow should naturally be. That's the kind of twist that I want. So I might be able to just make it up by using the shoulder and the upper arm. Oof, maybe not. Okay. Maybe we'll just have to deal with that candy wrap. Maybe there's a noodle joint we'll be able to use later on in order to counter that a little bit. That's all right. For now, we will accept the candy wrap. Okay, so let's say get a little bit of variance in here. I want the first two, a little bit more. And then I think I might change this a little bit. Where it's out, I want it like forward instead. Going for that like real Jack Kirby hand pose. Throw this in a little bit too. Okay, so the danger with this is if we're looking at it in silhouette, it doesn't necessarily look very appealing quite yet. It's close because each of the fingers are kind of like ending at a different length, but the space and the negative space between each fingers are really, really close to being the same. So what I want to do is I want to either make it so that the negative space between two of the fingers is a little bit different than the other. And I'm going to see if I can try and get a break right here. A break, what I mean by a break is, so there's a straight here and a straight here that's kind of breaking off of it. It's not just like one continuous line. Cool. So let me go ahead and mirror this whole arm. And then let's do the legs now. Light presupposed bend. I'm going to clear out these toes. Probably lead with the balls of the feet again. You to move in the direction I basically initially animated them in. Then I can either rotate the upper leg in or I can rotate the feet in. Pretty sure I'm going to want a shape change here where like I hit the camera and the knees bend. Like pretty close to maybe something like this. Okay, but we can get to that one later. Let's continue moving. I'm going to save it. I've been saving it incrementally throughout this entire process. It may just not have seemed like it, but as I've been moving, as I've been working, I've just been hitting Control S as I've been going. I'll go ahead and do that again now, just in case. Got a good set of poses so far. Got to keep on going. And this, I think we're close. We're going to do this kind of twirl backwards and we're going to end on this frozen moment pose. So I think I might do the last pose next and then do the pose prior to that. Only because I want to get a good sense of the twist that's happening. Oh, actually, you know what? I think I'm planning on like a 360 twist here. That's right. So I think I'll continue to do it in order. Okay, let's do it that way. So I've got this one. And then here, I'm going to reset everything to start. Well, almost everything. Let's reset the torso for sure. Let's reset the rotations on this, neck, head. And then I'll probably don't need to reset the legs yet. Neck and head for sure. Let's start with just the core. And then I think actually the tilt forward I might keep. So our X is around -45. I'll just go ahead and use blend to neighbor to get that angle back. And then I'll get some twist in my torso to start. I'm twisting this way. So yeah, okay, that sounds right. So I'll get some lead with the twist here. I think I might leave the hips as is. And I actually think I might want this tilt upward on another controller. That way I can use this for my RY. So that might be the only time I use this to tilt an RZ. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. So let me get this RX 0. Might be a little difficult. Let's see. Hang on. Let me think about this a little really quick. Because if I pose the character like this, the RY twist I'm going to have to do offset. Okay. Kind of painted ourselves into a corner a little bit. This is all good. I think right here is where I'm going to want to use the angling. Okay, so I'll use this for RZ also. Let's say, for example, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk this back a little bit. This forward rotation and X. Okay. So what I think I'll do is I'll use this to point to the camera. Let's just say 45 for now. And then I'll use this as 45. And then I'll get this back in X. Oh, that's not going to give me the twist I wanted. Oh, I should have rotated the other way. I'm sorry, excuse me. So I think, let's start with the ideal situation here and work backwards. So I think what I want out of this is a negative 45. I'm going to counter rotate this back to 45. Or sorry, negative 45. Wait, I'm going to just zero this out, excuse me. That way I can get this rotation in Y. Wrong one. There it is. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and work backwards from here. So I want this, and then I want this. Okay. And then in here, this is where we'll get our zeroed out RX. Take these, zero these out. Oops. That one I think might be different. These two I think are just RX. Yeah. Okay. And then this one I think we're going to have to do. And then I'll probably point it in the angle that this control is pointing. Yep. There we go. That way I can get this rotation this way. I'm just going to have to keep an eye on that. There's a very good chance that like the Euler filter might get rid of that on accident. Okay. So let me build this again. I want to make sure that I am leading with the right thing here because I want this kind of spiraling effect with the arms and the legs. So what I'll do is let me reset these, and then I'm going to build in spiral that I want to be getting with the arms first. Not really concerned so much about like the hands yet or the shoulders too much. No, I want this. And let's get this mirrored on to the other one. And then let's get this facing the opposite way. So left shoulder. Okay, cool. So this is pretty much setting up the twist that I want. Twisting this way because then the arms would be dragging. So I'll definitely pose the fingers differently. I might use the fist again here. We'll see. Not sure yet. Yeah. Okay. For now, actually, this might be a good opportunity for us to create like another finger pose that we'll be able to use in the future. As you've noticed, I've begun like just copying and pasting, and I know I can rely on those finger poses because I took the time to construct them properly. Also, I might keep the hips as is. I might rotate it a little bit, but not too much. So in this kind of chain of lead and follow, the legs are definitely last. It's close. There's a little bit of clipping here that I'm going to want to get rid of. And actually, no, I think I might use the hips to get rid of, or sorry, the individual hip controllers to get rid of like this little bump that's happening. We don't want this at 360 yet because this would be, the following key should be a 360 rotation. So this might be somewhere midway, but it's basically going to be turning this way. And that looks right so far, like the way that it's supposed to be spinning and the way it's supposed to be feeling while spinning. So I'm not sure about. We're going to have to see what it looks like in motion. We're kind of getting the effect that we want during the twist. I'm not really happy with this leg though. So I'm pretty sure this one I'm going to have to change. It's okay. Feels a little imbalanced towards the bottom. You can see the silhouette growing as it begins to spin, or shrinking, excuse me. You can see how long it is and how short it is, especially with the leading edge. The leading edge of the entire figure touches close to the bottom of the frame, and then as it begins to rotate, it jumps up really, really high. I might have to change the pose during the rotation itself. Okay, this one we might have to figure out as we continue to move forward. I don't think I'm going to find the solution just posing in a vacuum like this. Okay, so go from here. We do this kind of spinny pose. See if I can try to make it so when we see it on the other side like this, there's like a even amount of limb on each side. There's a very good chance I might end up like spinning 720, but that's okay. For now, we'll keep it like this. Save and then keep moving. Okay, let's get some fingers going. Let's get a nice hand pose on here. Something that conforms to the shape. We don't want anything too complicated, only because this is somewhat of a passing pose. Let's go ahead and I think we want some kind of like a diamond shape here. Something that'll kind of conform and tailor itself to the direction in which it's kind of moving, and we're dragging here. So I think the more condensed and the more graphic we can keep the shape, the better. Yeah. Okay. Cool. And then let's do our last pose here. Oops. Actually, I don't know if I want to do that. That's okay. I can just always pose it again. So actually, let me Control Z back because I don't necessarily need any of that other pose. The last pose is so different than that one. I'm not really going to get anything useful out of it. Trying to see if any of my previous poses are close enough to where I can salvage something. I'm looking at pose number 8. It looks like the pose that's probably closest that might be helpful is pose number 4. As far as like the spine and the limbs go and stuff. So let me try that. I'll start by neck, head, just these. Let me go to this one. Last frame, I'll paste. Oh, I should mention I'm using copy pose and paste pose. I just have it bound to shortcuts, so it's faster. Okay, actually, I take that back. Let's go ahead and start from scratch. That way I can build this properly. And so I can keep this angle in here. And then, all right, let's start with the spine. The legs, I swear, are close to this one. Kind of. Let's just the legs then. Okay, cool. So let's work in a little bit of, if we're looking at this pose from the side view, obviously, we've got somewhat of a C gesture like this. I'm definitely going to want more here. But then from the front, we have like a C gesture going to the right. And I'm going to do that in RZ. So we can see we're seeing the underside of the pelvis a little bit too much. I might just bring this back and then counter rotate the spine back. It's going to be very dependent on the camera. And then I know we have a web arm somewhere here that we can just steal. Maybe this one? Yeah. So I'll copy this one. I'll paste it here. I'm going to finesse more once we get into the correct spot, especially since this is going to be like our frozen moment pose. I think I'm going to try and, we got to try and make sure this is like as nice as it can possibly be. Okay, cool. We've got all of our poses now. So we have our 8 storytelling poses here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, we lost our twisting pose. Sorry, one sec. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to select all, and then I'm just going to share keys just to make sure we have a key on every single control that we need. There we go. Alrighty, cool. So we have every single one of our storytelling poses. I'm going to save here, and then I'm going to version up, and then we're going to begin to put it into space really roughly. And then our last thing for this lesson is we're going to check it in game. We're going to export it out. We're going to check it out to see how it works. And we'll go from there. Save, and then I'll version up. And then I will begin to place it into space. Alrighty, so I'm going to use my sing-along ball as reference, obviously. And then I think what I actually might do is I might take the animation that I had prior in one of my previous files and transfer it onto here. So first thing I'll do is let's start up another Maya and open up that scene. That way we can transfer curves between Maya sessions. Okay, so here I have an incremental save of my version 1 of the anim. This was the anim that we were using to test our import process into Unreal. So I might just use this as a reference point. So what I think I'm going to do, let me find the best control to put it on. Ideally, it would be this one, especially since we don't have any translates and we can get a good sense of timing. So I think I'll do that. I'll delete my translate keys on this. And then I'm going to take the translation keys from here. And then I will probably copy both. I'll copy XForm world space playback range, but I'll also copy animation. And then let me just get the translates just to be more specific. Bring it over to this my scene. And then in here with these selected, I'm going to hit control click. Okay, cool. And then I think we just need to make sure our starting point is in the same spot. So yeah, so let's try. I'm going to copy the XForm here and I'll paste the XForm here. Okay, so that is the delta between the two. So what I'll do is I want to apply that delta to my entire animation. So I'll hit this global offset. I'll control click the XForm world space and then turn this off. And that should technically have adjusted my entire curves or all of my curves, but it looks like it didn't. So let's try again. Okay, cool. So I'm going to hit all, and then I'm going to deselect that. And then what I'll do is I'll begin to space out these poses. And then I'm going to set this all on steps for now. Oh, actually, before I do that, there's one thing I want to do. I want to offset my rotations. Okay, so I think this is pose 1 here. This will be pose 2. This will be pose 3. And still be pose 3. The one that I want to keep an eye out for in particular is for when we go to this pose. I believe it's this one. And all of the rotations are the same after this. So this might be okay. And then let me just set this here. And then I'll set this, my rotations, on stepped. Because if you remember, I used this to rotate upward, but I only use it on a certain pose. And let's space out the rest of our poses now. Okay, so I've got my all selection set. I'm going to subtract this from my selection set. And then let's go ahead and look. So we want this pose until, let's see, probably, so 4, 10, and 16 are where my first 3 poses are going to be. Let's do this again. And I'm going to cast all of this into a selection set, all 2. That way I don't have to keep going back and forth. Okay, so this is 4. What's it again? 4, 10, and 16. Okay. 4, and then frame 10 will be here. Frame 16 will be here. And then we're going to hold this until frame 29. Okay, so this is the part where it's going to get a little bit tricky because, again, we were pretty much just posing in space. We weren't posing the camera. And so this is where we kick the camera. Frame 37 and 38. That's a doubled up pose. Okay. And then one of the other things I'll do now is I will probably let this be on linear. My rotation Y. Okay, cool. So again, I just want everything rough for now. It doesn't have to be perfect. Oops. So we are definitely missing a pose here. It definitely feels like we're missing a pose here. I think there's another pose that I can kind of get into right here, right before we go to this pose. I feel like I should time this pose with this camera move. It's all good. So that means we'll have to find a different pose for here. It's fine. So for now, I'm going to reset this. That way I know we need another pose here. All right, I'll have to reframe some of this. Definitely too close. Gonna have to adjust some of these poses so they're a little bit more towards camera, right? So let's see if we can do a little bit now. I don't want to do too much right now. Just go ahead and pose it the way that I want it to feel. I'll probably just the pose a little bit. Okay, cool. Not bad. Getting there. So I'm going to try not to touch this anymore. I'm going to use the third layer. Sorry, not the third layer, but the third cog. I want it to be somewhat like this. It's cheated a little bit. Not quite sure yet. This one, let me adjust this one first. So let's say it's that, and then we'll work backwards. Get the spine up a little bit. Ideally, I'd like to get rid of like some of that negative space. Might be able to use the hips again. Let's try. And then let's adjust the angle of the web arms. Okay, we're getting that cross like we were talking about. Let me go back and let it go snap into this pose. Okay, and then let's fix this one. So this last one, I really want gesture to come through, but I also want some foreshortening to come through. Yeah, ideally I'd get to thicken this up a bit. I might be able to point it towards the camera a little bit more. This shoulder feels pretty good. It feels like I'm getting like a nice curvature here. Let's see. Because I'm looking at the leading edge here. See, yeah, there's that little bump in the shoulder right there. So I might be able to get away with doing that with the shoulder. Doing this with the upper arm. And then this other arm I might just lower. Cool. That's feeling more like a frozen moment frame. It's feeling a little bit too far to the right though, or a little too center. So I think I'll adjust the camera a little bit. Yeah. And then ideally, I'd probably be posing this around some kind of UI. So I'm going to imagine that like over here, it'll say like Spider-Man or something like that. Looking pretty good so far. I think I need to delay the camera like here. I think once the action crosses the center plane, the center line here, so much of it is happening to the left here. And there's all this negative space that we're not really utilizing on the top right. So I think what I want to try and do is I might start closer here. We'll see. And then I think we need to get this closer to on screen already. Ideally, we would want that here, but we don't want to leave Spidey behind. So, okay. I either need another pose here or I need to find a way to shorten this part. Let's go ahead and save it here. We're making good progress. I'm going to version up also. And in this next version, we're going to try and eliminate that space between this bump and this camera move right here. I think we can just consolidate this. The shorter I make it, the higher chance we have of getting far in the completion of the animation. I'm obviously not going to focus too much on polishing. That's not what the workshop and lesson is kind of about, but I do want to see if I can get to a pretty decent spot by the time we're done with everything. Okay, let's go ahead and go through and see what edits we can make so that we can cut out this section here. I'm beginning to think we can simplify this a little bit, so I might just see if we can cut this out. So let's see. Here's our camera bump, and then I think here's where we can get to this pose. Cool. And then I think I might get rid of this one. And I think I might here earlier. Probably just on these keys though, because I think this key is for the twist. Yes, it is. Yeah, and then we can just time the camera to be sooner. Oh, maybe like much sooner. Let's see what that feels like. Yeah, something like that. There we go. It's a little simpler. Cool. And that feels like we have enough time for our frozen moment also. Just bring this all the way to 120. So let's go ahead and save this out as it is. And then we're going to import it into Unreal just to test and see if everything is still working as it should. Okay, so from here, I'm going to make sure I have my Anim folder up as well as my Unreal folder. I have all of my exports here in this export folder from my Maya. And inside the content folder of my Unreal project, Go to character intro, Spider-Man, and anim. This is where I have my camera FBX and my Spidey anim FBX. So I'll be updating it here. This is where I'll be outputting it from Maya, and then I'll just be dragging and dropping and updating these FBXs and re-importing the assets from Unreal. So let's go ahead and open up our project. Okay, cool. Here we are in Unreal. Let's open our Spidey character intro. So I'll go out to character intro and I'll open up this level sequence. And then our timeline here, Spider-Man going through. If we look through our shot cam, there we go. Everything as is until I believe 120. This is too long. Let me cut this down. Perfect. Okay, cool. So let's go back into Maya, and then I'm going to go into my outliner. Then using these selection sets, I'm going to go ahead and do an export. First things first, I'll do the camera. So select the camera, export selection. I'm going to export into my export folder, Spidey cam. I'm just going to overwrite it. And I want to make sure that I am exporting cameras. There we go. Okay, cool. So that's good. We'll just hit export selection and overwrite it. Okay, there's our camera. And then now we have to export our animation. So I also have the export set, not only as a quick select set in outliner, but I also added it here. So I'm just going to grab from here. And then I'm going to do the same thing, export selection. This time I'm not going to include cameras. I do want to include animation. I do want to bake it just to get like the most accurate results possible. And then I'm going to overwrite my Spidey anim. Yes. It'll run through. Okay, cool. So from here, I'm going to do the old school import like I had mentioned. I'll copy my FBXs from here and then replace them into here. Just in case though, I'm going to make backups of these. So what I will do is I'll most likely take these and I'll probably put them, make a backup folder. It's an old folder. There we go. I'll keep them. Okay. So let's go ahead and update these now. So replace. Okay, now that we have our files backed up, I'm going to take these FBXs and then I'm going to replace them here, old school style, in my Unreal content folder. And then we're going to go back into Unreal and we're going to re-import these one by one. Go into Unreal, and the first thing we'll do is we'll update our Spider-Man animation. So if we go into our content browser, we'll go into this anim folder here. Here's our Spidey anim. And it's still flying around in its bind pose. So what we'll do is we'll just hit re-import animation. And it will update our animation with the latest FBX. Cool. I'll save, close this, and then we have to re-import our camera. So I'll right-click on our ShotCam track, import. I'll use the Spidey Cam FBX, import, and then if we play this, there we go. It should be pretty accurate to what we've got in Maya. Okay, so there's a little bit of like lighting, kind of artifacting and issues and some material stuff, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. All I'm worrying about is making sure the animation looks correct in Engine as it does in Maya, and then I'm going to continue to update this as I continue to move forward. I always want to check back into game and make sure that this is playing correctly. And actually, I'm not sure if we covered this last time, but if we go into the level where we placed our level sequence, so we'll go back out to here, character intro, we'll just open up the level its own. And if we hit play, this the sequence that we set up, which we placed, I believe it's up here somewhere. Let's see. Oh, down here, excuse me. It should play on repeat, given that we set this up properly when we placed it down in the level. So let's check. There we go. Okay, cool. Now we've got everything imported, and we'll continue this cycle, rinse and repeat, until we flesh out our animation more and more.